On tonight's CTV News, Labour announces new housing policies. The Mayor wants a decision on land mitigation, and a councillor is trying to save the Christmas spirit. This is CTV News. I'm Grant Mangan. It was the petition that wasn't. More than 2,000 people signed a petition against Fern Farms dumping effluent into the Waimakariri River. It was due to be delivered to Environment Canterbury today. However, it was withdrawn at the last moment. Marcus Gibbs explains why.
This is what more than 2,000 signatures look like. Retired farmer and recreational fisherman Mac McCowan launched an online petition last week. The aim was to stop Fern Farms from acquiring Environment Canterbury's consent to discharge wastewater into the Waimakariri River.
We can't put that in the river, it's just crazy. It's an obnoxious idea.
Fern Farms would only do this when the Christchurch City wastewater network is unavailable and there's no room to store the waste on site. Mr McCowan isn't impressed by the application, and thousands of others aren't happy either.
We've been at it about 10 days and there's nearly 2,100 people have taken the trouble to sign it, so I'm feeling good about that.
He tried delivering the petitions today but decided to come back on Monday when the chief executive of ECAN would be available to meet with him. This is an issue that means a lot to him. Fern Farms primarily discharge meat processing waste.
The kinds of things that they mention in the application that may be in the waste, maybe, they say, are things like ammonia, fecal coliforms, fat, grease and BODs, whatever BODs are.
The maximum amount they plan to dump on one day is about 3.5 cubic metres. That's the equivalent of 350,000 litres of wastewater.
There's a lot of communities and community people around the river who sail on it and row on it and swim in it and walk their dogs on it and fish in it, who need protection because the thought of what might go into there is obnoxious.
Fern Farms last discharged treated effluent to the Waimakariri River 3 weeks ago. Before that, they dumped wastewater into the river in early May. An Environment Canterbury spokeswoman says these discharges were an emergency backup required when the company's storage ponds reached capacity and ultimately relate to the earthquake damage to the city's wastewater network. Since then, the treated effluent has been accepted by the Christchurch City Council wastewater network for treatment at the Bromley plant, an arrangement which started nearly 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Fern Farms Chief Executive Keith Cooper says the petition doesn't lay out the facts fairly for people. He says the farm's preferred option is to move out of the Waimakariri River, and the consent application is for an emergency backup option only. He says the company uses the City Council's Bromley plant for disposal on a daily basis. During extreme situations like flooding, this plant is unavailable. The wastewater is treated before its disposal, solids and bacteria are removed. The process is monitored by ECAN. Submissions on the resource consent application are open to the public until the end of the month. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
Christchurch Mayor Leanne Dalzell is urging councillors to make a decision on Port Hill's mitigation.
Mayor Leanne Dalzell says dragging out a decision on Port Hill's mitigation is unfair on homeowners. Councillors received a report last month which noted the small amount of properties that would benefit, coupled with the high costs of an area-wide mitigation work, made the idea unattractive and largely unaffordable. But Port Hill's red zoners are claiming the report was flawed and that councillors needed more information before accepting the recommendation. That additional information was provided yesterday. The new report states while there are 5 areas where area-wide mitigation was technically feasible, none of them met the minimum threshold to establish financial viability, something that's been confirmed by an independent peer review that the council has commissioned. In the wake of claims, it has overestimated the costs of area-wide rockfall protection work. The council's chief planning officer says if Crown-owned properties were factored in, it would make an area-wide mitigation more affordable, but Earthquake Minister Jerry Brownlee is refusing to let that happen. Mayor Dalzell recommended the council accept the staff's recommendation, but councillors say they want more information before making the decision.
Labour's new housing policy will build 10,000 affordable homes to fix the accommodation crisis. Joelle Bautista has the story.
Labour made some big promises today that if they are elected to government, they will kickstart the housing recovery and build 100 homes for temporary housing in the first 3 months. In their grand scheme, Labor outlined they plan to build 10,000 homes in Canterbury over the next 4 years. The total cost may work out to over $30 billion. Labor's housing spokesperson, Phil Twyford, is confident the goal is in reach.
Whatever it takes to build these houses. It is not acceptable that fewer than 1,000 houses of the 12 to 15,000 that are needed have been built in 3.5 years, and we will not allow that situation to continue.
Twyford believes the current national government has been hoping a broken housing market will fix itself. The Labor MP believes Labor's hands-on approach will be the key difference in solving the problem.
We're going to roll up our sleeves and build the houses. We're going to finance their construction. We're going to bulk purchase the building supplies. We're going to use Crown land and buy land where we have to. We're actually going to build affordable houses.
Councillor Glenn Livingston, head of Christchurch City Council's Housing Committee, believes actually building the houses is doable. He says the real problem lies with the consenting and regulations.
So we're getting a lot of approaches from builders. They want to break supply chains. They want to use imported kind of materials and models. They can put these things up really fast.
Labor plans for at least a third of 10,000 homes will be medium density to vitalise the central city.
Cantabrians want to see a thriving, vibrant city centre, and that's why we're committed to bringing people back in and building that contemporary urban community where a lot of people will want to live, work and play.
Phil Twyford says whether it be temporary accommodation or affordable housing, it's about getting people back into homes. Labor wants to build thriving modern houses, but with great neighbourhoods, green space and supported by infrastructure.
Communities have to be places where people can live, work and play, not just dormitory suburbs, but places where people can run businesses with cafes, libraries, shops, sports fields. That's all part of living in a thriving modern community.
Labor are planning to increase accommodation supplements in Christchurch by $50 a week until the housing crisis is fixed. Joelle Batista, CTV News.
Christchurch's mayor is calling for safer buildings following the 2011 earthquake.
Mayor Leanne Dalzell is pleading for safer buildings, believing if building safety laws aren't fast-tracked, Christchurch earthquake victims would have died in vain. 40 people died in the February 2011 earthquake because of unreinforced masonry. The Mayor spoke to the City Council's submission on the Building Amendment Bill at the Local Government and Environment Select Committee. Mayor Dalzell was urging members to reduce the proposed timeframes for upgrading quake-prone buildings. The bill, which passed its first reading, amends the 2004 Building Act, incorporating some of the recommendations of the Canterbury Earthquakes Royal Commission. But Mayor Dalzell believes that bill doesn't go far enough to learn from the lessons of the tragedy. It doesn't pick up on the Commission's recommendation that all unreinforced masonry buildings should have their seismic capacity assessed within 2 years and any strengthening work done within 7 years. Mayor Dalzell says hazardous features including gables and chimneys should be addressed separately to other structural upgrades, as those are the cheapest and easiest to fix.
The Christchurch City Council is spending money on a new tramway loop along Oxford Terrace, linking it to Cathedral Square.
The new tramway work will carry a price tag for ratepayers of $1.69 million. The Tram's owner Michael Esposito is welcoming the council decision, calling it a major step forward for the recovery of the central city. He says it will link the various shopping precincts together. It will also give locals and visitors a reason to rediscover the central city. Post-earthquake changes have already seen Stage 1 open last November. This is a new but shortened linear city route. This November will see the completion of the original loop route, extended through to Rolleston Avenue, Armour Street and New Regent Street. Funding towards the next stage will see the second loop further extended and trams pass along Oxford Terrace through the relocated Restart Mall. The journey will end near Cathedral Square. It's a 45-minute trip through the rapidly changing CBD. Canterbury Tourism Chief Executive Tim Hunter says the new loop will be crucial for tourists visiting Christchurch during the Cricket World Cup.
Coming up, the Anzac poppy is being made in New Zealand once again. Cantabrians can be proud to say the Anzac poppy is once again New Zealand made. The Christchurch RSA has been announced as the new national supplier for the annual poppy appeal.
It's one of the country's most recognised badges, a small red poppy symbolising war remembrance. Each year it's worn for Anzac Day in New Zealand, marking World War I commemorations. And now it's back in Christchurch.
For us, it was a historic thing, a tradition that we liked. We felt that by doing it here in New Zealand, it links the remembrance, it links the symbol that we're talking about, and it links our veterans. So yes, we're very pleased that it's back here.
It was a controversial decision to outsource the production of the Anzac poppy to Australia. However, they will soon be made here in Christchurch again, and the Garden City will reap the economic benefits.
Christchurch started manufacturing poppies in 1930. Prior to that, we used to get them in from France. We started making them here in Christchurch in 1930 and been doing so ever since up until 2011. 83 years of uninterrupted production by Christchurch RSA.
Special commemorations are planned for the centenary of Gallipoli next year. It's important there's a good supply of poppies for Kiwis to wear. The Christchurch RSA is thrilled to be the supplier. Last year, more than 1 million poppies were sold around the country. The donations go towards supporting veterans and ex-servicemen and women in need.
It's a very valuable fund for us because it helps pick up those little bits and pieces of support that fall through the cracks. Just in the last couple of weeks, for example, we've provided cataract surgery for a veteran here in Christchurch. We've had 2 or 3 that we've assisted with new hearing aids.
Meanwhile, the RSA is planning to move into its new headquarters. The $6.6 million building is due to open next year.
After 4 years of hell, effectively, we've now got a new building rising in our old site in Armour Street. Hopefully we'll be in our new building by March next year, which is great. Almost 4 years to the day the old one got bowled.
Positive news after a tough few years. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
The Christchurch City Council is not decorating the city for this year's festive season, but Councillor Jamie Goff is determined to save Christmas.
Christmas is one of the happiest times of the year. But in Canterbury this year, the Christchurch City Council, or recently nicknamed the Christmas Cancelling Council, has chosen to not decorate the city for the festive season. In an effort to cut costs, the majority of councillors voted to save the $55,000 previously spent on the decorative trimmings. Councillor Jamie Goff was one of the 3 who voted against. Goff believes it's not the cheap window dressing that needs to be cut, but rather in the hundreds and thousands.
Which I think can be found in the likes of operational expenditure cuts, the likes of surplus land, perhaps assets that are no longer strategic could be relooked at. There are a whole host of different things, and I just think cancelling Christmas is probably a bit too far for a city, and particularly the young people of the city that have been through so much.
Jamie Goff has set up a Give a Little page, an online place where anyone can donate towards the decorations.
So if we can raise the funds through sponsorship and generous people in our community or further afield, then it means it doesn't need to come out of the city coffers, but we can hopefully have our cake and eat it too, and we can enjoy Christmas and get caught up in the spirit of all of that with the decorations around the city.
Councillor Goff says the amount of community support for the campaign is incredible. Jamie Goff isn't the only Cantabrian wanting to save the Christmas spirit.
And I've been going around a number of businesses. I've also been heartened by how many business people and actually individuals in the city that are saying they're not happy about cancelling Christmas at all, and they want to do everything they can to help. They want to jump on board with this, and if it's not going to the enormous sum of 0.02% of rates, it's not going to cover the Christmas decorations, and then right behind the fundraising campaign.
Almost $400 has already been raised. The online donations page has only been active a few days. Joel Batista, CTV News.
Still to come, the weekend sports preview, roading update and weather forecast. Time to check out the weekend's sporting action.
Super Rugby makes its return this weekend with the Crusaders' first of 3 important fixtures to end the round robin taking place tomorrow night in Wellington. The Crusaders lineup will be missing a number of international players, with Israel Dagg and Richie McCaw missing through injury, while Nemani Nadolo remains on international duty with Fiji. Kieran Reid and Owen Franks have both been named in the reserves for tomorrow night's match against the Hurricanes, with Ryan Crotty taking captaining duties. Dan Carter's return will come from the bench, with Colin Slade getting the nod at first 5. The Crusaders could go a long way to sealing themselves as the New Zealand Conference winners with a win tomorrow night, with their last 2 games being at home to local rivals, the Blues and the Highlanders. Tomorrow night's match gets underway at 7:35. Still with the Crusaders now, with halfback Andy Ellis confirming today that he will skip this year's NPC season to take up a contract to play rugby in Japan. Ellis's commitments in Japan mean that he will also miss several of the Crusaders' Super Rugby games early next year before he returns to the side. After being snubbed in recent years by the All Blacks, Ellis will still be looking to prove he's got what it takes to earn a spot in the All Blacks World Cup squad when he returns from Japan. It's a clash of the Titans this weekend in the Hawkins Trophy, with arguably the 2 favourites for the title, New Brighton and Lincoln University, due to do battle at Rawiti. High school old boys will look to stay on top of the competition after their opening round bonus point win when they meet Christchurch, while the other match in the top 6 sees Marist Albion hosting Sydenham. The Press Cup also ups the ante this weekend with a whopper of a match in store when defending champs Marlborough Boys College take on Christchurch Boys High School tomorrow at Boys High. Coverage of the match can be seen here on CTV at 12 p.m. on Sunday, with a replay at 5:30 the same day. The Canterbury Rams take to the court for the final time tomorrow night when they take on the Southland Sharks at Cal Stadium. The Rams had a poor start to the season with a record of 1 win and 10 losses. However, the Rams have picked up their game in recent weeks to now have 5 wins to go with 12 losses. Canterbury will be looking to finish on a high tomorrow night, where their match against the Sharks tips off at 7 o'clock. Geraldine's Hayden Paddon is on the pace early in the latest round of the World Rally Championship in Poland. Paddon finds himself in 7th position after the opening day's 3 stages, 23.2 seconds behind rally leader Sebastien Ogier and just 2.1 seconds behind teammate Thierry Neuville. Paddon will be looking to stay on the pace over the weekend, with 21 stages remaining in the event. And finally tonight, in a somewhat bizarre move, Canterbury Cricket have ditched the Wizards name in favour of the Canterbury Kings, who will compete in the summer's 2020 competition. Canterbury are also ditching the historic and traditional red and black in favour of purple and gold. Canterbury Cricket boss Lee Jamon has said the new choice of name and colours has far greater marketing possibilities, with connotations of dominance and royalty. The change will only affect the 2020 competition, with the team known simply as Canterbury in the 4- and 1-day competitions, while the team's strip will revert back to the more traditional red and black in the 50-over format. In the meantime, the Kings will be restricted to polishing their purple helmets in preparation of their first showing in their new look kit, which will come later this year when the popular 2020 competition gets underway. You're up to date with the latest in local sport. I'm Gordon Finlater for CTV Sport.
If you're driving around the Christchurch central city, CTV's traffic update will assist you navigating the repairs taking place.
Hello travellers, to help you plan your journey around the central city, here's a few tips. This week, Barbados Street is a place to avoid. The pinch points are at Belly Avenue to Salisbury Street, and from Litchfield Street to St Asaph Street. Madras Street from Morehouse Avenue to St Asaph Street is down to 1 lane, and then from Latimer Square in parts to Belly Avenue. Madras is still busy during peak times, especially at the Morehouse Avenue end, so we recommend if you do come up Gasson Street to consider using Brougham Street to Waltham Road and then Fitzgerald Avenue as an alternative route. To keep up to date on what's happening with the Central City roads, keep watching CTV News first at 5, and in the meantime visit the website Transport for Christchurch.
And finally tonight, your regional weather.
Kia ora everyone. A mixed bag of blue skies and some cloud around for part of the day today. Let's see what those temperatures were. South Canterbury, Timaru 13 degrees today. Temuka and Geraldine both on 13 degrees. Ashburton 13 degrees down your way. Methven was on 13 degrees today. Rakaia also on 13 degrees. Darthfield 13 degrees out there. Leeston and Rolleston had 14 degrees today. Lincoln also had a high of 14 degrees. And Christchurch a warm day with 14 degrees as your high for Friday. Akaroa 14 degrees was the high for today. And out north of the Waimakariri, Kaipoi, Rangiora and Amberley all on 14 degrees as well. Taking a look further inland, Culverden and Hamner Springs, you were both on 14 degrees today and 14 degrees in Cheviot. And further up along the east coast, Kaikoura reached a high of 15 degrees today. While a southwesterly airflow is heading our way tonight, but a ridge of high pressure will bring fine weather tomorrow. Let's see what those temperatures are. Timaru, mostly fine and sunny for your Saturday with a cool southwesterly breeze. Tonight you'll see an overnight low of 2. Tomorrow's high will be 14 degrees. Well, it's clear skies in Ashburton and light winds expected in mid-Canterbury too. Tonight's low 2 degrees, tomorrow's high 14 degrees. And for Otautahi, fine but cool with mostly sunny skies and little wind. Tonight's low 2 degrees, tomorrow's high 14 degrees. Kaikoura, mostly fine and sunny for Saturday with a cool southwesterly breeze. Tonight's low 2 degrees, tomorrow's high 14. The rest of Canterbury can expect a fine Saturday. Let's take a look at the temperatures. Temuka and Geraldine, a high of 14 degrees is set for you. Methven, you can expect 13 degrees and 13 is expected in Rakaia. Darthfield, you can expect 13 degrees tomorrow, and Leeston, 13 degrees for you as well. Rolleston and Lincoln, 13 degrees, and over in Akaroa, a fine day ahead with 13 degrees as your high for Saturday. Out in North Canterbury, cloud around for Kaipoi, Rangiora and Amberley, all on 13 degrees. Culverden, Hamner Springs and Cheviot, a fine day for you with a high of 14 degrees. Looking ahead for the Canterbury region, northeasterly winds freshening during the day on Sunday with high cloud increasing. Fresh to strong northeasterly winds at first on Monday with cloudy skies and some brief rain. Winds easing and tending northwesterly during the afternoon. Mostly fine on Tuesday with high cloud and fresh mild northerly winds. Colder southwesterlies developing from evening with rain developing at night. Cloudy with periods of rain slowly clearing on Wednesday and snow lowering to 400 metres, and fresh to strong gusty southwesterly winds decreasing during the day. It's mostly fine on Thursday with sunny periods and some cloud. It's cold though with fresh southwesterly winds, and you can expect some frost during the night. And that's your weather update for Friday. Have a great evening and a fantastic weekend.
And that's CTV News for Friday and the week. I'm Grant Mangan. Good night.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.